You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 Gov.biz Radio, a CBS station.
Hello, and welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. You're listening to us on CBS radio station 1580 AM in the Washington, D.C. area, or maybe on the web, WMClive.com, where you can also find links to all the podcasts of our previous shows. And let us hear from you, too. Tweet us at hashtag WMCLive or email us at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. Today, we kick off our coverage of Black History Month with Kimberly Bryant, who founded Black Girls Code to teach kids computer technology. We also talk with Kim Gandy, former National Organization for Women president, who currently heads the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And we close on a two-parter with Suzanne Braun Levine, one segment on her books and one on how journalism and women journalists have changed during her career, which stretches from Ms. to Columbia Journalism Review to her blog. But first, we have to go behind the headlines. Egypt is in flames again, as women, youth, and secularists clash with the Muslim Brotherhood in government, which clashes with the army. Did anyone really think that people kept from self-determination could morph overnight, poof, into the peaceful exercise of and transfer of democratic power? Some Western pundits, from Bernard Lewis to Tom Friedman, still assume there's a battle taking place for theocratic dominance from North Africa all the way to the Western Pacific, to which the principal Islamist groups have added jihad and defined the aim as holy war. A clash of civilizations is how these pundits put it. No, this isn't a clash of civilizations. This is a clash between galloping modernism and entrenched traditionalism. You know, modernism offers vaccines, electricity, world communications, mass literacy, personal freedom. Yet modernism often masks political dominance, market economy supremacy, and blind worship of technological efficiency. Meanwhile, traditionalism, which can offer consistency, community, a sense of place and person, a historic self, often also masks hierarchy, poverty, ignorance, and most of all, great fear of change. Women and the perceived role of women in societies are key to both sides, because those who control reproduction in the family control the state. Women function like canaries in the mine, if only the world would not turn away from what's happening to the canaries. For instance, 87% of Afghan women still report having experienced brutal sexual and physical violence. Just last month, an Afghan husband in Herat publicly beheaded his wife for refusing to work as a prostitute. And the Western troops are slowly departing. This clash of ideas and practices, not civilizations, shows itself most clearly at a moment like this, with transformation occurring in virtually all aspects of life, from global climate change to globalized markets. In that context, backlash against progressive ideas is expectable, as are religious revivals, the rise of Christian fundamentalism or evangelicism, as well as the rise of orthodoxy and Islamism. The last, at least, has coattails of anti-neocolonialism to ride. This slow-motion face-off demands fine-tuning by the West in trying to avoid and lessen conflict. The Obama administration and, it must be said, the brilliant tenure of Hillary Rodham Clinton as Secretary of State have gone a long way toward healing wounds from previous U.S. insensitivity. Her legacy includes the precedent-setting acknowledgement of women's centrality to foreign policy solutions. She'll be missed. And the Arab Spring? It's going to be a long, hot Arab summer. When our first guest, Kimberly Bryant, was starting out as a young electrical engineer, Nobody she worked with looked at all like her. Now she runs a beautiful organization getting beautiful results. We caught up with her on her cell phone in an airport yet. Welcome, Kimberly, to Women's Media Center Live.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
It's good to be on.
Now, tell me, I know that you're in an airport, and so we may hear background noise or announcements of planes, but we're going to try this anyway. You were a fresh woman in electrical engineering, and you didn't see many others of you, that is, women, much less African-American women, and you decided to do something about it, and Black Girls Code came out of that. Tell the story of how you got the idea and how you got this started. And for our listeners, tell them what it is.
So, yes, absolutely. Black Girls Code is a nonprofit organization I founded in April 2011 to focus on introducing young women of color between the ages of 7 and 17 to technology, and that is all forms of technology. So robotics, core basic computer programming, mobile app development, web development, etc., and really giving them the skills that they need to become those tech creators and tech leaders of the future. But for myself, from a personal standpoint, the driving and motivation factor behind Black Girls Code was twofold. Having a middle school daughter myself who was very interested in technology, I could not find really inclusive and diverse activities for her to do and to learn to do some of the coding that she was showing some interest in. But being an engineer myself and having been in the field of engineering for a couple of decades, I have always been kind of disappointed with the way the field has not grown in relation to women and women of color. And I've often found myself throughout my career the only one in numerous settings.
Yeah.
So really wanting to create a different future for my daughter and other young women like herself, and really was really the motivating factor for founding Black Girls Code, to kind of start breaking apart that digital divide and getting more women of color into that funnel.
And it's been a huge success in the Bay Area, right? That's where you're mostly based. I'm going to ask if you have plans to go national, but first talk about the Bay Area.
So we are mainly based in the Bay Area. That is where our headquarters is. But in 2012, we did a huge push during the summer, mainly called Summer of Code, where we traveled to 7 different cities within the U.S., as well as we went to Johannesburg in South Africa. And for this year, we are planning to start chapters in those cities. So now we have a chapter in Atlanta. We're starting one in Memphis. We have one that we're starting in Las Vegas. We have Detroit, Chicago, New York, that will all have BGC chapters in them before the end of the year, and we'll also run programs, just as many programs as San Francisco, in some cases maybe even more. We're also going to do new workshops in 15 to 20 new cities beyond those. So that includes places like D.C., we're looking at Minneapolis, Denver, etc. So we're going to also go to additional cities on top of where we are right now.
This is so cool. This makes me grin. The idea of all these little girls starting, you said, at age 7.
Yes.
Wow.
We've actually had a 6-year-old.
Oh my God! And when they're not intimidated and they're not Luddites like the older ones of us, and they will just grow up with this, and they will actually be fitted with the tools for the 21st century. Why do you think that the field has been so resistant? I mean, other than it's being pale male controlled, to women. I mean, where women have made more inroads in other fields than in engineering, and particularly in I guess a woman invented COBOL, the very first coding language, but then the boys took over.
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons, Robin. I think that there's a perception in the field, and that is translated to women, that is not a field for them. So whereas we've seen the numbers of women in the hard sciences, chemistry,
right,
science, to increase, not so in technology. So definitely during that 80s boom, the first dot-com boom, the industry really took on a male dynamic where this image of the male computer geek emerged, and women didn't see themselves fitting into that. So although we're a large pool of adopters and users of technology, not so much on the creative side. So there's definitely that image and perception problem, but also it's just really some hard data that suggests that once girls get to about the middle school age, they tend to opt out of those science fields.
Yes.
Again, some of that being perception, but also messages that they get from adults and teachers that tells them they're not able to do the work, which is not true. They're very capable. So one of the reasons we really have a heavy focus in middle school is to tap into where they're starting to hear these messages and give them another dynamic and to really give them an alternative to what the normal message they would probably receive.
So you're countering the programming that comes in around age 12 when they if they've been tomboys before, or they've said, I think and I want and you're not the boss of me, suddenly they begin to say, well, I'm probably wrong, but, they hedge their bets. Their confidence is being eroded, and you put it back. This is just beautiful. Absolutely amazing.
Absolutely.
And you're going
That's definitely our objective, is to raise them up as much as we can with the 7-year-olds, but really focus in that category, that age range, when those messages start to become skewed.
Have you got any flack in the communities of color that you're doing this with girls? I remember when Take Our Daughters to Work Day got a lot of flack because it wasn't "and take our sons too." When it seems self-evident why it was Take Our Daughters. Have you had any problems there, or has it been largely supportive?
It's been largely supportive. So, in terms of what we have gotten is requests. So many of the parents also have young boys that are interested in technology as well. So they always tend to ask us, when will you do a program for the boys? Now, we're going to start something for the boys, or what can I do for my sons? So it's been more of a question of what else is out there, because students of color in general do not have access to programs such as ours. How
are you funded? How do you manage to survive?
So we have always been a grassroots organization. We haven't gotten, to date, really large grants or funding from corporate sponsors. So we have had some really major and substantial corporate sponsorships that have helped us to kind of seed our programs and set the foundation. So we were a Google Rise recipient in 2012, and we also just received the Bank of the West Innovation and Philanthropy Award in 2012. And both of those grants were some of the largest ones we received to date, and really helped us to grow and support the programs we had in place right now. But we also have smaller ones that we get from corporate sponsors such as ThoughtWorks, Semantic, and we've had some donations of equipment from organizations such as Twitter. So there has been some support there, but we are looking to grow that even more so we can really feed the expansion that we're trying to do over the next couple of years.
And before we have to go, give the website so people can find out more and maybe contribute in kind or other things.
The website is www.blackgirlscode.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and you can reach out to volunteer, donate, sponsor a girl for a class. We have several coming up. Love to have you.
Thanks for being with us. Bye-bye now.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
We'll take a brief pause here on Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be right back with one of contemporary feminism's national leaders, Kim Gandy. After Hurricane Sandy, parts of the East Coast have returned to normal, but others won't see normal again for quite some time. One group getting volunteers and aid supplies to those who need it is called Occupy Sandy. Made up of a coalition of Occupy Wall Street activists, community organizers, and technologists, Occupy Sandy is using social media and other software tools to identify and quickly respond to urgent needs among the hardest-hit communities. You can help. To donate or to volunteer, Visit occupysandy.org.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 gov.biz radio, a CBS station.
Welcome back. Our next guest, Kim Gandy, was president and CEO of the National Organization for Women, NOW, and a key organizer of the 2004 March for Women's Lives, bringing over 1.15 million activists in support of reproductive rights to Washington. She's now president and CEO of the National Network to End Domestic Violence. Welcome, Kim, to Women's Media Center Live.
Robin, it is always wonderful to talk with you.
Well, right back at you. Now, some of our listeners might not know exactly what the National Network to End Domestic Violence is or does, so why don't we start with a little encapsulated explanation of that?
Well, the National Network to End Domestic Violence started originally when the state domestic violence coalitions and all of their member programs were trying to lobby effectively to pass a brand new Violence Against Women Act back in the early 1990s, and decided that they needed a national voice to pull them all together and to be the voice of advocates and victims and survivors in Washington. Thus, the National Network to End Domestic Violence was born, and we are made up of the 56 state and territorial domestic violence coalitions and their nearly 2,000 programs, which is all of the shelters, transitional housing, batterer intervention programs, hotlines, counseling, the whole works.
Wow. It's a lot on the plate, yeah. And,
it is.
And now, all this time later, here we are fighting for VAWA again, Violence Against Women Act, renewal, as it were. Exactly.
It was reauthorized in the Senate, at least, by unanimous consent in 2000, having passed overwhelmingly in 1994, been signed by President Clinton. It was reauthorized by unanimous consent in 2000 and again in 2005. And we've now been working for 2 years for the most recent reauthorization, and it's it's caught up in the same net that has caught up so many progressive issues the last couple of years.
Well, aren't the two major stumbling blocks that the extreme right is otherwise known as the House of Representatives is balking at is coverage extending to native reservations and then also to lesbian and gay couples. Am I correct?
There are also some sticking points around immigration. It seems that most of the LGBT issues have been resolved or are being resolved to the satisfaction of advocates. It's been a long road, but we keep getting closer and closer. The biggest sticking points seem to be the what they call the U visa recapture. It's a special visa that can be requested by law enforcement to allow an immigrant who has been the victim of a crime, in this case domestic abuse, to stay in the country and assist with prosecution. And all of the law enforcement entities have requested this. It's not even an expansion. It's just we'd like to use some of the U visas that expired back when the government hadn't put its regulations in place to use them, and so they ran out without being able to use them, and there are women still waiting from that period who were never able to use those visas that should have been available. So we just want to recapture those unused ones. We're not even trying to add new ones. But that was such a sticking point because it has immigrant in front of it. And as soon as you say immigrant, there are certain people start jumping up and down. And so that's been a fight. Although I do think that it will be addressed in comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah.
And the other one is the treatment of domestic violence and sexual assault on tribal lands, on reservations,
right.
And that has been a huge sticking point.
Has anybody pointed out the sick irony about the fact that they're opposed to the original people who were here before the Europeans came, and also opposed to the immigrants who are the newer people here? It's the two extremes. I mean,
it's a full circle.
It's completely full circle. Yeah. I mean, basically, what we don't want to cover any of that. We don't want to, women have a right to be beaten. A kind of approach, a family values approach that values domestic violence.
Well, particularly on reservations, it's really open season on women because the tribal courts don't have the authority to prosecute, and the closest U.S. Attorney's office could be hundreds of miles away. And the men who are not from the reservation, men from the nearby towns, can come onto the reservation and basically get away with anything they want. Native men on the reservation can be prosecuted by the tribal court if they commit domestic violence or rape or sexual assault. But men who come in from the surrounding towns can only be prosecuted by the U.S. attorney if the woman can manage to get herself hundreds of miles to the nearest U.S. attorney and keep going back for hearings and trials and the like. And the reality, as you might imagine, is that men who are not from the reservation can rape and beat with impunity. And this Violence Against Women Act has a provision to address that, to say that if it's a non-native man who has commits a crime of domestic violence or sexual assault on the reservation, that it can be prosecuted by the tribal courts, which are required to give due process. And if he doesn't receive due process or doesn't think he is, he can ask that it be removed to the U.S. District Court, and the court would have to make a decision. U.S. attorney would make a decision whether to remove it. So there are protections for the accused, but so far we've not satisfied the concerns.
It is an astonishment to me that in 2013 we're still having to fight over reaffirming these points and the Violence Against Women Act, when the same people are up in arms in horror about domestic violence in, say, India, or violence against women anywhere else in the world, sort of finger pointing to elsewhere. I mean, when you look at the span of things, we've only got about a minute and a half left, but where are we? Have we improved? Have we slid back? Are we sort of on course? What would you say on this issue?
The Violence Against Women Act and the Family Violence Prevention Services Act, the other things that we've done at the congressional level, have made a huge difference. We do know that there has been a decrease in the lethality. Fewer women are dying as a result of domestic violence. The lethality assessments that are now happening in more states, GPS monitoring and the like, we are making a difference, but we still have so much more to do, especially in terms of the societal okay, if you will, for men to be violent, and almost the encouragement of boys and young men to respond with fists when they're insulted or so-called disrespected, and that kind of thing just escalates.
Yeah, it's almost an entitlement. We still have not severed manhood from violence. I mean, when the Army still has as a training song, "This is my rifle, this is my gun, one is for killing, one is for fun," together with lewd gestures accompanying it. The message is to men, your body is a weapon. You are a weapon, and women are targets. And as long as that's the definition, we got more work to do.
Right. And there are many men who are not like that, but they cannot be bystanders. They have to be active in intervening.
Exactly. And fortunately, it seems to me that more are, but not enough,
More are, you're right.
It's a good sign, I think, for women and men and children and other living things that you are now the new head of the national network, because you were a brilliant president of National Organization for Women, and you've been a really meaningful and creative and energizing and energetic director and leader in the women's movement for a long time now. Thanks so much for being with us on Women's Media Center Live.
Really a pleasure.
And now it's time for verbal karate. Feminists are taking on the use of cougar to describe a woman whose lover is younger than she is. First of all, it implies that she's a predator, which she might be, but the name predetermines that. Second, guys, how many times must we say it? We're really not into the animal thing. Chicks, birds, cows, sex kittens, even dogs, if not measuring up to your jejune standards. Now there's a great word, jejune. Third, there's no comparable word for December-May lovers if one is or both are male. Fourth, are you a cougar if your younger lover is another woman? Anyway, as a substitute, I submit Colette, the wise, witty French writer who had many younger lovers late in her life and more younger adorers. Somehow saying, she's a Colette, bestows respect, dignity, glamour, even affection to the descriptive word. That is, if one must be ageist in the first place, which, by the way, one mustn't. So it's time for another pause, and this is Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and we will return in a minute with a quick visit to the Surrealism Corner, and then we get to meet author Suzanne Braun Levine. If you're 50 or over, or if you hope to live to be, stay tuned. Anyone in the Dallas, Texas area on Friday, February 8th is in for a treat. The Dallas Women's Foundation and the Embry Family Foundation are sponsoring an in-depth look at how we can change gender stereotypes in media and entertainment. There'll be a forum, panel discussions, and a luncheon, and the keynote speaker is Julie Burton, president of the Women's Media Center. It's all at the Doubletree by Hilton Dallas Campbell Center on February 8th in Dallas. But seating's limited. For more information on the Gender in Media Forum and Luncheon, and to register, go to dallaswomensfoundation.org.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 gov.biz radio, a CBS station.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Surrealism Corner, where we go to curl in fetal positions and gibber. By the way, I welcome your submissions to the Surrealism Corner. Clips, things you hear, things you see, things you want to report. Hashtag on Twitter is WMC Live, and you can email us at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. So we have two little items today. The first is that the Somali government, Somalia is such a fun place, in a move that has fortunately outraged human rights groups around the world. The Somali government has charged a woman who said that she has been gang raped by soldiers. They've charged her with making a false accusation that insults and lowers the dignity of a national institution, the army, crimes that could mean many years in prison. And they've also jailed her husband for backing up his wife's allegations. The government claims that the woman is lying for financial gain, but many people who have met the woman say that she has been forced by the police to recant, even though it really happened. It's a terrific catch-22 to the 10th power. Do the math. And the other little item today is a poll released this week by the Public Religion Research Institute, a nonpartisan research group in Washington, which found that among the roughly 2/3 of white evangelical Protestants who affirm that the term pro-life describes them very well, not somewhat, but very well, among that roughly 2/3, 64% are also opposed to stricter gun control laws. Yeah, that's a bit of cognitive dissonance for you right there. Apparently, life in the fetal form is to be taken very seriously and cared for, but once it's born, not so much. That's it for the Surrealism Corner today, and remember to send me your goodies, please. Now, our next guest is a writer, an editor, and nationally recognized authority on women and family issues and media. The first editor of Ms. Magazine, and its editor for 18 years, setting the tone. She was also the only woman editor of the distinguished Columbia Journalism Review, and her recent focus, Women in Second Adulthood, has produced numerous books, a website, TV and radio appearances, and lectures and blogs, and it is a pleasure to have Suzanne Braun Levine on this program. Welcome, Suzanne, to Women's Media Center Live.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, my delight. Now, I want to go right into the new books. The newest book, just out in paperback, is How We Love Now, Women Talk About Intimacy After 50. And you have been exploring this whole terrain of second adulthood, your name for it, which is wonderful, in two previous books, Inventing the Rest of Our Lives and 50 is the New 50, a title I've always loved. But in this new one, Women, How We Love Now, I know you also do workshops and you give speeches. And what are women telling you about the new intimacy after 50?
Well, what interested me was the idea. I have a friend who has the most interesting life. She has great grandchildren. She has a doting son and daughter-in-law. She had a great career and still teaches. She travels. She goes to the opera. She has many, many friends. And when I say to her, gee, you have such a great life, she says, why can't you find me a man? And that was sort of in the back of my mind when I was thinking about the many ways in which women are finding intimacy in my age group, that they aren't truly acknowledging and appreciating consciously because we're so fixated on the idea that intimacy means romance. And as I talk to people about their friends and their grandchildren and their work, intimacy with work is very important. I realized, and in the conversations I think they realized, that they are being nurtured from so many sources at this stage in life that it's really something to celebrate.
Yeah. Isn't there a new study recently, you're the expert, but something about having women, for a woman, having women friends literally lengthens your life?
Absolutely. Friendship, about which I have just written an e-book short, which will be out in a month or two. Friendship is good for your health. Your girlfriend will help you live longer, not just because you love them and they love you, but because when women are together with the friends they love and trust, all kinds of wonderful hormones like oxytocin are released. And it is thought that it's possible that one of the reasons we live longer than men is because our stress level is regularly lowered by the companionship of our women friends. Therefore, there's this great observation that having women friends is more important for your health at this age than not smoking.
Oh, I love this. This means that you and I are going to live to 150. Mm-hmm. This is very good for feminists because feminists have good women friends and this is good.
Yeah, they think we're going to go away. We're never going to go away.
No, absolutely. We're here for the duration. Take a minute and talk about the new ebook. I know it's not out for a couple of months, and maybe, hopefully, you'll come back and talk to us when it comes out. But what I am particularly responding to, for obvious reasons, is the intimacy with friends and the intimacy with work, which immediately I gravitate toward. So talk about those things and the new ebook.
Well, I think our generation is really the first that has had widespread emotional connection and satisfaction from our work. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happened that we fought for and achieved in our first adulthood was access to meaningful work and support for doing meaningful work. And I have found, and women I talk to confirm, that for many of us, our work is one of the great loves of our lives.
Yep.
And one of the challenges of moving into your 50s, 60s, and 70s is how to adjust your work life and how to adjust to your work life. A lot of women find that as we move on in work we love, our relationship to it changes, so that, for example, our ambition sort of flattens out, mm-hmm. and our devotion intensifies, mm-hmm. which means that you can work in a different way at the work you love.
Yep.
And in terms of friendship, this is another challenge. Many of us had the pleasure and the support of working in an environment of people who were as meaningful as the work. And often when you get to this stage of life, that particular ingredient isn't there anymore. Many of us are working now sort of freelance and on our own. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to replace that kind of community.
Mm. This is fascinating. I mean, because in the years at Ms., when you and I worked together, we always called it the work family.
Right.
You know, and there was an incredible intimacy there that developed and that turned into friendship and still holds. And I've always felt it was a great privilege to be able to, I think it should be a human right to have work that you love as opposed to labor. And of course, I guess most people on the planet have labor, which is a very different, very different.
You may remember Thank God It's Monday Club.
Oh, I do. Oh, yeah. For our listeners, Thank God It's Monday came about. Suzanne and I invented it, and it was a play, of course, on the TGIF, Thank God It's Friday. But it came at a time when in our various private lives, weekends were not such happy times for various reasons. I was having a meltdown with my husband, and my mother was very ill, and in weekends was nonstop. And I can't remember what was going on with you, but it wasn't that happy either. And we realized that coming in to work on Monday was a real up. You know, other people said, "Oh God, it's Monday, have to go back to work." And I just looked forward to it like, "Oh my God, there were smart, funny women around, and I could do meaningful work, and I didn't have to be around him." And you remember, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people feel that way because if you're lucky, you can count on getting some respect for what you do on Monday that you may not have seen a glimpse of on Saturday and Sunday.
True. How true. Well, now we're going to have to take a pause shortly, but now that we're on work, I want to come back and talk about your distinguished career as a journalist and changes that you've seen in journalism over the years. Because to start, well, you didn't start. You had done other journalistic work before, but you were the founding and defining, even more important, editor of Ms. Magazine, the first one, and for 18 years You created the tone that made Ms. Ms. and still to this day does. And then also at the other end of if that's advocacy journalism, at the other end of the spectrum, to be the editor of the Columbia Journalism Review, which is the most prestigious monitor of media matters. That's a hell of a sweep. So when we come back, we'll discuss that. Break time again. I'm Robin Morgan here with Women's Media Center Live. We'll be right back with Suzanne Braun Levine, whom, by the way, you can find on Twitter and Facebook. And we'll talk about how journalism's changing.
If you ever need an organ transplant, you will probably die before you get one. Thousands of Americans die waiting every year. You can improve your odds by joining LifeSharers, and it's free. Visit lifesharers.org or call 888-ORGAN-88. LifeSharers puts organ donors first. When you join LifeSharers, you get preferred access to the organs of other members. This could literally save your life. Join LifeSharers today. There's no age limit, parents can enroll their minor children, and no one is excluded due to any pre-existing medical condition. Call 888-ORGAN-88 or visit lifesharers.org. That's LifeSharers.org. LifeSharers. It's free. It could save your life.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 Gov.Biz Radio, a CBS station.
And we're back again with Suzanne Braun Levine, this time wearing her journalist's hat. Okay, Suzanne, I don't quite know how to pose this question to a consummate journalist who once was my boss, but how would you characterize, aside from the obvious, the internet and blogging and texting and all the technology, how would you characterize changes in media over the years, particularly regarding women? I mean, we're more there, and we have a little bit more visibility and a little bit more power. Not as much as it should be commensurate with our percentage of the population or with being half the world, but we're working on it. But what would you say were the most important changes, if any?
Well, I think you're right that we now can pretty reliably get our 2 cents in, which certainly wasn't the case when we started Ms.
Yeah.
One of the profound revelations and sources of our commitment at Ms. Was how many stories weren't being told.
Yeah.
And how many women thought that they were the only one and that they were probably crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has actually been my defining goal as a journalist, regardless of whether it was at Ms. or at CJR, was to find these stories and tell them truthfully. And on the other side, to watch for stories that distorted the truth about women's lives and the truth about the news, and clarify and challenge those mistold stories. So in terms of where we are now, I think there are more, on the good side, there are more truthful stories being told. On the bad side, there is more inaccurate information being attributed to those stories.
Is
so
that
it's just more, I think.
I was just going to say, is that because there's just more of everything? I mean, given the internet?
Yeah, and it's unfiltered, as we all know.
But where are the grown-ups? Yeah, I mean, when you say that's been the theme of your work life as a journalist, that's also, here we are all these years later, that's the theme that created the Women's Media Center. The line is to make women visible and powerful in the media. So here we are all these years later, still trying to tell the stories that don't get told and trying to call out, as we do with our, name it, change it, trying to call out the lies and the stereotypes.
Right.
So it's...
Well, yeah. I mean, certainly we haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
But whenever I get discouraged about women in the profession or women in the coverage, I think about the moment at Ms. when we did a survey of what people thought would be the last breakthrough for women in our lifetime. In other words, the hardest mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And at the very top of the list was a woman anchor delivering the news. And the argument was that the public would not take a female voice seriously. Every time I see one of these great women reporting, from the front and speaking so intelligently and informed and confidently and powerfully, I think of that. And I think of how exciting it is that we went way beyond predictions in our lifetime.
That's true. That is very true. I can't remember when you wrote it, but you wrote a News Consumer's Bill of Rights, which I remember being very interesting, and we should look at again, and probably we should post it at the Women's Media Center. I bet it still would be completely valid and apt. Can you remember some of the articles that were in the Bill of Rights?
Well, one of the things, and this again is a principle that I think has made it possible for me to make the transition from Ms. to a professional journal feel to me so comfortable, is that at Ms. I always felt that what advocacy journalism was our effort to give all the information and then come down on the interpretation that we thought made the most sense in terms of women. But that I always hoped that somebody reading such an article would be able to have enough information to come down on a different side. That the information was there, but that we had an obligation to interpret it.
Yeah. You always were scrupulously fair. It used to drive me crazy. But
I do think that that's a reader, you listen to me, a consumer of journalism has a right to expect to get the full spectrum of information that pertains to a subject. And that's why we all go crazy with these Todd Aiken experiences.
Yes.
When you realize that the guy who was interviewing him, I actually have his name, Charles Jacko at KTVI in St. Louis, never asked a follow-up question.
I know.
He went on to his next question. And then when that remark about the woman's body being able to reject a pregnancy from rape was reported, instead of saying in the report, it's wrong, it's not so, it's nutty, the reporters would say, women's groups have been outraged.
It's the false equivalency.
The false equivalency.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
maddening. We've only got about 2 minutes left, but I want to ask you the question that I've asked many women, and with amazing answers. What this particularly in your case about the professional work life, what would you say was your greatest either regret or source of pain, and what was your greatest pride?
Well, my greatest pride, of course, was the experience of growing up as a woman in this society at Ms. Magazine. No
Oh, that's lovely.
But the greatest pain, and I think this is a great pain for anybody who's gone through it, is being fired. And as much as we get our identity and our confidence from our work, when that's withdrawn, it's devastating.
Yeah.
And I was actually fired twice. And I took to my bed, and it took a long time to pull myself together again. And I think it's in a way one of those secrets that I think is important to share. That being fired is more common than you think.
Oh, I'm sure.
And downsize is now sort of a neutral word, but it's very demoralizing. And I think the more we understand, again, that we understand that we are not alone, we're not the only one, we are not inadequate, the faster we can get back on our feet.
Well, you not only got back on your feet, you invented the fertile void, which is this period that you go through, out of which you come, and came this whole new career as a book writer and an expert on women in second adulthood and all sorts of good things. You have to come back when the ebook comes out and tell us more about that. Will you promise?
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us on Women's Media Center Live. And now it's time for Fighting Words. After the many inane, infamous anti-science statements made by members of Congress, there's a pro-science resolution deserving of our support, so get out your pencils. Representative Rush Holt, H-O-L-T, of New Jersey, has introduced H.R. 41 in support of Darwin Day. Darwin Day is an international celebration of science and humanity on or around February 12th, which is the day that Darwin was born in 1809. It's the same day as Lincoln. Darwin Day is an expression of gratitude for the enormous benefits that scientific knowledge acquired through human curiosity has contributed to the advancement of humanity. The resolution reads in part, quote, "The advancement of science must be protected from those unconcerned with the adverse impacts of global warming and climate change, and the teaching of creationism in some public schools compromises the scientific and academic integrity of the United States education systems." Close quote. The International Darwin Day Foundation created this new global holiday in order to transcend nationalities and cultures in recognizing science as an international language accessible to all of us. The foundation's website is really fun. It provides resources that you can use to celebrate science every year on or near February 12th. Information about the life of Darwin and his legacy, and also templates for organizing and publicizing Darwin Day events. And a directory of events is on the website, events where you can find celebrations taking place near you or register your own event. These include everything from proclamations and educational symposia to Darwin birthday parties, art shows, book discussions, days of lobbying focus with legislators, games, protests, dinner parties, and the like. And the website also links you to a Darwin Day e-card that you can send to your friends. The day is endorsed by the Unitarian Universalists, bless them, they're so consistent, the American Humanist Association, and other such groups that are unafraid of scientific methods and truths. The website is simply darwinday.org. And remember to drop an e-card nudging your congressional representative to support Darwin Day through H.R. 41. It hardly seems excessive to ask for one day amid the federal holidays that formally observe Christmas and Easter to celebrate science. And if we can't get it recognized as a formal state holiday, we can at least observe it ourselves. For that matter, February 15th is Susan B. Anthony's birthday. Darwin, Lincoln, Anthony. What a trio. We can celebrate all three. And that's it for this week. You've been listening to us on CBS station 1580 AM radio in Washington, D.C., and on the web at WMClive.org. gmail.com, which also has podcasts of our previous shows. Remember to email us at womensmediacenterlive@gmail.com. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and for this program Executive Producer Julie Burton, Senior Producer Crystal Williams-Chancellor, Technical Director Michelle Kinsey-Bruns, Production Assistant Nora Eakin, Board Operator James Henderson, and our founding sponsor Regina Kulik-Scully. I'm Robin Morgan. Thanks for being with us. Join us next week when we go to the movies. Sundance for Indies, Athena Festival for feminist films, and the Oscars for Where Are the Women? Kathy Bates and Jane Fonda give us some answers. Only here on Women's Media Center Live.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on 1580 gov.biz radio, a CBS station.